It's that time again. Time for another Walt Disney World Dining Review. Hi everybody, Wade for the Kingdom Report, back with you once again, today inside Magic Kingdom Park, most magical place on Earth. We are heading to a culinary destination inside Fantasyland. A destination that just might be the most sought after reservation in the entire property. Fantasyland is known for its majority of quick service restaurants, the Village House, Friar's Nook, and beyond. However, today we are going to a full-service, table service restaurant for dinner, located in New Fantasyland, just beyond these spires of Old Fantasyland, and just past Enchanted Tales with Belle, the experience that you can join in on retelling the story of Beauty and the Beast with Belle herself. We are heading to Be Our Guest Restaurant. Be Our Guest Restaurant opened with New Fantasyland several years ago, and since then has remained a top dining destination for families coming from around the world who would like to dine inside the Beast Castle and catch a glimpse of not just the Beast himself, but also that grand ballroom that we've fallen in love with thanks to the film. If you are lucky enough to score a reservation to Be Our Guest Restaurant, you can always check in here at the main entrance with the cast members or via the My Disney Experience app, which is what I did. And as soon as they were ready for me, they sent an alert to my phone. I crossed the bridge, and keep in mind, it was a dinner reservation, so this being shot in the daytime, I did come back in the evening, and it felt like a dramatically different experience. DisneyDining.com writes that the experience of dining at Be Our Guest Restaurant is an enchanted tale that begins as guests approach the main entrance and find a crumbling archway that opens into a large stone bridge with the Beast Castle looming on large rock formations in the distance. After passing a brightly colored crest, guests can check out somber gargoyles supporting lampposts with sounds of a gurgling waterfall in the distance. The main door into the Be Our Guest Restaurant features two massive statues of mythological beasts on each side and a beautiful stained glass window above depicting the enchanted rose and how the sorceress cursed the beast. Once I entered the restaurant, I was asked to wait for a few minutes in the suits of armor hallway. Some of these suits of armor also were snoring. It made for a very entertaining experience, to say the least. And then after those few minutes, I was sat right away in the grand ballroom, where I had an epic panoramic view of the entire space. This, of course, is a far cry from where I was sat the last time I visited here, in a back corner where I could barely see anything. I lucked out for sure when it came to this table, and it was a two-seater to be sure. You'll see I was at the end of sort of the racetrack of the entire dining room, which allowed for me to see all which directions as I was up against the back wall. Now, this location certainly has a lot to look at in terms of detail, which is probably why most people want to sit in the grand ballroom. There are two other rooms that we'll get to here in just a bit that you could also be sat in. So we like to remind people that just because you see all of the brochures showing people dining in this ballroom does not necessarily mean you are going to be sat there. It's a real possibility you could be sat somewhere else. Once I was seated, I was handed a wine list, very extensive to say the least. After all, miss, this is France. A lot to take advantage of if you are interested. The other thing that immediately got placed on my table was this bowl of bread. Yep, some bread to accompany my meal, along with some Himalayan salted butter right alongside it. The bread was fresh, warm, and crunchy, which I appreciate. I remember the last time I dined here, that was not the case. In fact, the bread was cold and, dare I say, a little stale, which really disappointed me in that last meal. However, this bread was a-okay. Up next, it was time for the appetizer. I decided to go with the duck and pork terrine, and that was served with house pickles, frisee, and whole grain mustard. For those of you who have never had a terrine before, it's essentially a firm pate with something inside it. In this case, it's all about the pork and duck. Either way, it's a rich, smooth mixture of meat and fat and spices, and it is served chilled. Now, it almost looks like a slice of meatloaf, doesn't it? It did have sort of that consistency alongside of it. However, it is meant to be placed on these chips and consumed like so. It was very tasty, to say the least, and not something I am typically indulging in on a regular American diet. It was very nice to switch things up. And speaking of switching things up, you'll notice this cart here on the left of your screen. When I was here the last time, almost every server used one of these carts, and it added to so much noise pollution in a restaurant that is already horrible when it comes to acoustics. This is one of the loudest restaurants in all of Walt Disney World. So to see only one in use made a huge difference in the noise pollution factor of Be Our Guest and made it a lot more bearable. And you see there off in the distance, the Beast was coming to greet us all. Now this is not considered a character dining experience. In fact, it's not listed as a character dining experience, but the Beast does make an appearance. He does not come to every table. He basically walks the racetrack in between all the tables and waves. He did so right up to my table, which was very nice because of where I was positioned. Something I like to make mention to everybody is the fact that you could be 5 tables deep in the back corner like I was the last time, and you'll see the Beast from that spot only, which means there are a lot of other people in the way and you don't get much of a direct view of him. However, based on where I was sitting this time, I got very, very lucky and had the Beast walk basically just a couple feet up next to me. It was wonderful for the photo op. After the Beast had made his way through the grand ballroom, my entree arrived and my server was quite pleased with the presentation. It is the center cut filet mignon, and that is accompanied by a smoked tomato, Yukon gold potato puree, and a béarnaise sauce. I made sure to dabble a little bit of that béarnaise sauce all over my filet. It is one of just about 5 different options you can choose for the entree. Pork chops, a veggie option, a rogue chicken, as well as trout, all sort of round out the entree selections at this Be Our Guest restaurant. And it was, in a word, delectable. This was melt in your mouth filet mignon, and I could not have been happier. I remember the last time I was here again, harkening back to a pretty sour experience overall. This steak was made precisely for me, and it met every expectation. The smoked tomato ended up being a punch of flavor that I was not anticipating, but in the best way possible. I absolutely loved it. The Yukon Gold potato puree was also buttery and delicious, the perfect accompaniment for the filet mignon. And I was completely stuffed. I absolutely had my fill, and I thought there is no possible way I could have dessert. But then, of course, I remembered something. I remembered who I was, and I ordered up a dessert trio for my after-meal delight. It starts with a dark chocolate truffle, continued with a chocolate tart topped with the gray stuff, of course. And yes, Chip smiling back at me in a white chocolate medallion there. And it gets rounded out by a lemon jam macaroon. This ended up being a wonderful way to end the meal. Not only was this lemon jam macaroon fresh, crunchy, it felt like it had just been made for me. Again, I say, the last time I was here, not the greatest experience. It felt like mass-produced banquet food. However, this time around, everything felt like it had just been prepared especially for me, which makes a huge difference when you think about the price point here as we near the end of the meal. And the gray stuff, yes, of course it's delicious. A yummy mousse alongside the chocolate tart. It has crispy pearls and, of course, that white chocolate wafer of Chip himself. I ate all of it. Dark chocolate truffle, by the way, turned out to be the very best thing on the plate. It's filled with the dark chocolate Grand Marinier ganache, and it is rich and heavenly. It is something that made my taste buds sing to the heavens and made me thank the Beast for all he did. Following dessert, I was presented with this beautiful postcard collector item from my server. It has the Be Our Guest restaurant crest on it and then the Beast signature. Again, it's not character dining. However, this is something that comes with everybody's meal. On the back is that beautiful stained glass design of the Beast Castle when things were a little better and not so dark in the film, and it was something that I can't wait to add to my collection. Now let's see what the damage was when it comes to the check presenter that had been provided to me. This restaurant is one that does a prefix menu for lunch and dinner, so it is the same price at both times of the day. Per adult, it is $67 as a prefix menu, ages 10 and up plus tax and gratuity, $39 per child, ages 3 to 9 plus tax and gratuity. So for one adult with everything out the door, you're looking at about $85. No doubt this is one of the best themed restaurants in the entirety of Walt Disney World, which is pretty much why people will pay such a large amount, no doubt. And of course, as I had mentioned a little bit earlier, you may not get sat in the Grand Ballroom. In fact, there are two other rooms that you could be sat in. The Moody West Wing, as DisneyDining.com describes it, is where the Beast hid in solitude, and it's also available for guests to dine in. It's a dark purple wallpapered area, shredded curtains, and dimmer lighting frame. The glowing enchanted rose as well is in here, and magic mirror on a small table right alongside of it, as well as a torn portrait of the prince, or the Beast himself, that flashes to the image of the Beast with random lightning strikes. The West Wing is the smallest of the three dining rooms, but definitely the most immersive thanks to the moody theming. And I will say this also seems to be the quietest of all three dining rooms. I don't know if it's because it's such a moody, brooding type of atmosphere that people are just quiet in general, or because there's such heavy drapery and it feels like an environment that is meant to be more subdued, but it is the one location where I could actually hear people talking versus the other two. Back into the Grand Ballroom we go to move on over to the final dining room. That final dining area, as Disney Dining describes it, is the Castle Gallery, which features a bright and regal feel with beautiful wallpaper, calming touches of green, stunning molding on high ceilings, and a central focal point of stone archways framing a rotating statue of Belle and the Beast waltzing. The walls in the Castle Gallery are also covered in beautiful paintings that depict the day-to-day lives of favorite characters from Beauty and the Beast to really help continue the story. I will tell you, this dining room is the loudest of all three. It is no doubt the size of it that makes it that way. It's like everything is amplified in here. So I would say Grand Ballroom is probably the second loudest. And then, of course, as I had mentioned, the West Wing being the quietest of the three. In September 2009, it was announced at the D23 Expo that Fantasyland would be expanded to incorporate Disney princess characters, along with a larger three-ring circus-themed Dumbo area. This, of course, led to a huge allocation of land for the Beauty and the Beast franchise, from Enchanted Tales with Belle to the Beast Castle and Be Our Guest restaurant, all the way over to Gaston's Tavern. And of course, this restaurant was added as part of the new Fantasyland renovation and opened in late 2012. It took a team of Disney chefs 3 years to develop the original menu. Now, at one time they did serve breakfast here, but at this time they are only serving lunch and dinner, and it is strictly table service, so you will need to get that reservation in order to get inside. We do encourage you to let us know if you've had a good or maybe not so great experience here at Be Our Guest. We know it's hit and miss for some folks. Like my last visit, wasn't so great. This time around was exceptional. Service was off the charts, food was outstanding, and it was, in fact, very magical. If you found this video informative, make sure you are subscribed to the channel so you never miss a thing. Hit that notification bell so you're always alerted when we have new content. And for the Kingdom Report, I'm Wade Heath. We'll see you next time for another installment of the Disney World Dining Review.
To all who come to this happy place, welcome.